Welcome to episode 3 of Lighten Up, Law of Attraction Meets Everyday Living. I'm your host, Ronnie Kala, and today we're flipping the script. Tamara will be interviewing me so you can gain some insight into my journey, my coming out story, and my expertise. One reason we're doing this today is I recently got back from a 10-day silent meditation retreat, so I'll be sharing all about my experience, how this Buddhist practice of Vipassana relates to the law of attraction, and of course, how you too can integrate it into your own life.
Welcome to this episode of Lighten Up, the Law of Attraction Meets Everyday Living. I will be your host today, Tamara Rose, interviewing the beautiful Ronnie Kala. We're flipping the script today so that all of our listeners, viewers, and friends can actually get to know you a bit better. What do you say?
I'm in. Let's do it.
Let's do it. For those of you who don't know, Ronnie Kala is my sister from another mother.
Not another mister, another mother.
Not another mister. We are half-seas and about 18 years apart, so our journey has been quite fun. And now Ronnie and I work together day in, day out, and it's just been like super yummy. Hence, Ronnie started the podcast. One of the things that just recently happened was you also came back from Vipassana. 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 So I think today we're going to go through your amazing story of finding your truth, honoring your truth, finding your alignment, finding your truest nature of yourself, and landing in your path and purpose. Because I know a lot of people want to know about that. I mean, a lot of people are trying to find that for themselves, and I think hearing other people's stories is always helpful. So let's talk about that. Let's unpack Vipassana and how that was. But for those of you who don't know, it's a 10-day meditation retreat where you're silent for 10 days and you meditate for 10 hours a day. So, so I feel like there'll be a lot of juice in us there too. What do you say? Does that sound like a good time?
Sounds great. I'm in. Let's party.
Awesome. So, Ronnie, let's start with Ronnie Kala, because you were not born Ronnie Kala. So a little bit about your journey and coming up with a new name. That's not a normal thing. I feel like it is for us, but not for other people.
It's not a normal thing. So, yep, I was not born Ronnie, nor was I born Kala. So I chose both those things. I think it feels normal to us because you did it before I did it. Like, you got married, changed your last name, you got a divorce, and you were like, I don't want the one I was given at birth, so I'm gonna pick a new one for myself. And then I was like, oh, that's a thing you can do. That's an option. So that was how I came to change my last name also. It was a little bit of inspiration. But
it started before that. It started before that.
The first name changed before that.
Yeah. So let's talk about your alignment, your path, coming into your own pronouns, non-binary.
Pronouns, all of it. Okay. Let me see, because I think it really kicked off around 2019, 2020 when I started working with you at the Beyond Human Method, because I think there were a few months where you were like, you should come work with me. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like, you should be my assistant. And I was like,
how many of you would work with a sibling? I think that's a great question. Would you actually work with somebody in your family?
It's been a journey. I mean, I've quit, I've been fired. It's been like a little up and downs, but we're here and we're in a new field and a new paradigm. And anyway, so my journey really started when I started working with you. And that kick-started, I started working as like emails and back office admin things, but I really wanted, I was really pulled to be like a participant in the program when I saw like all the other participants in the program and what they were creating. And I was like, I don't even know what I want, but I know I got to be here. I know I want to be here. Yeah. So, being a part of the work and doing it for myself, I found was like the authenticity journey for me. So a few months in, or no, maybe it was like a year in, I started like playing, like how I want to present myself to the world, how I want to see myself, how I want to be viewed, and then also like what do I want to look like in the mirror, and like how do I want to view myself?
Now, hold on, because that's a lot of layers. Okay, that's a lot of layers. So, what was like the first layer? Was it
I think the first layer had to do with money and
okay?
scarcity.
Okay.
Um, I remember at the time I was like, I feel paycheck to paycheck. I don't feel like there's a lot of abundance, and I want to like shift how I play with money and do with money. So
Yeah.
it was like scarcity, and then the root, whatever the root of that was, like a not enough within me that had the money then show up in such a way.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. And then the next layer that showed up, because I feel like when we do personal growth, when we do development, right, it's like peeling back the layers of the onion. We go layer by layer by layer to get to like what's our authentic core truth? What's our like what is that, right? So it's
Hmm.
interesting that your transition into non-binary started with money.
Yeah,
That's like a fact. That's like I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah.
cool. So, and then what came next? Because that is true. So the energy for those of you listening, right? So energy is like everything is energy, and how you do one thing's how you do everything. And so if you're looking at money and you're like not enough, that's going to be in other places in your life. It's not just money,
Hmm.
right? And that's essentially what you're saying.
Hmm.
So, so then what came next?
So it was like not enough with money, and then I was
Mhm.
like, okay, well, like where else? And
Mm,
so like not enough within me, and then it's like, okay, where are all the places where I feel not enough?
mm,
Um, and so I know it was also in like in my relationship, it was in money, it was in like the way that I took care of myself, my health and well-being. Um, and I think the more that I uncovered where all of that came from, there was some free space to then create.
oh,
Like the more that you peel back and you clear, the more that you can actually align in what you want and what you're choosing. And it becomes easier, right? Because there's not all the baggage and all the old stuff that's like keeping you, holding you back.
right.
Um, so I was like, okay, well, like, what is that for me? And I before I started working with you, I came out as gay, queer, non-binary, or sorry, gay, queer, lesbian. Like my
Mm,
sexuality, I was already exploring that. So when I started working with you and I was continuing down this journey of like authenticity and my authentic self, I was like,
mm,
okay, well, like I'm part of the LGBTQ community. There's like this kind of new thing about like non-binary or not man nor woman. And I'm like, okay, well, like, is that me or is that not me? Because like, I say that I bring up like the journey with sexuality too because I was already presenting myself as more masculine.
mhm,
So there was already like something there for me.
mhm,
The more that I was like, okay, well, like, what is this about me?
mm,
I had a day for myself where I dressed up. I was wearing like a masculine shirt, masculine shorts, like male clothes. And then
mm.
my hair was really long. It was like past my shoulders. And I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, the top half doesn't match the bottom half. There's like
Mm.
something amiss. It like doesn't and I started crying. I was like, this
Oh,
it doesn't look like me. And
oh.
I called my hairdresser. I was like, "Is there any way you can take me today? You can cut my hair." She's like, "Get here in 30 minutes and I can get you." And I was like, "Okay." So I like chop all my hair off. If you're watching the videos, what it looks like right now, chopped it off like a pixie cut. And this is some like I've probably chopped my hair off 4 or 5 times in my life because this is something that I always go back to. It's like it feels like coming home,
Oh,
like coming back to me.
yeah.
I'll grow it out and I'll chop it off again. I'll grow it out and chop it off. But like I'm like this is what really feels like me.
I mean, who doesn't like a good haircut? What's happening with your life? I don't know. Let's cut it all off and find out. Let's get bangs. Let's chop it. Yeah, I love it.
Need a change. And hair
Mhm.
holds energy too.
A hair does hold energy. That is absolutely right. So everything has energy, and hair definitely holds energy. So for those of you who maybe want to do research, if you ever notice like monks shave their head, some monks grow it out, some monks shave their head, and it depends on where they are in their transformation. So
Hmm.
like if they're new to monk life, it all goes away. Once
Hmm.
they've really anchored in this energy and they're like working with their energy, they grow their hair really long. Isn't that
Oh, I
fascinating?
didn't know that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's very common to see monks or those on the spiritual path either like shave it out or grow it super long, depending upon where they are in their journey. So there
Hmm.
you have it. Just in case you were inspired to go cut your hair, I just gave you the green light. Everybody go shave it. Let's
You
see
all
here.
have permission. Go chop off your hair.
Yeah, so if you think about it, like wherever you were in life is going to hold that energy on your head, and then your head has the crown chakra in
Chakra.
between.
Mm.
I mean, it's very deep. Go ahead. Tell me more.
Well, I was gonna say, so like that was like a spark for me. It was like, oh, okay, now I feel like I look more aligned and like what I'm desiring and what I like my authentic self coming home to me.
Right.
And so I started playing with a different name and so I started playing with Ronnie, calling myself Ronnie in the mirror
Hmm.
and just like to myself. And where
Mhm.
that came from for me was in, you know, when you're 7 or 8 and you like play house with your
Mhm.
friends,
Yeah.
and you like pick a different name and a different identity. I chose Ronnie, and it
I'm like, I
came
don't know if I
from
did that. That's phenomenal. That's fascinating. I don't know if I
yeah.
ever did that. It's so cool.
Well, you know the movie The Last Song with Miley Cyrus?
No. Mm-mm.
That's where it came from. That was
The
her
18-year
name.
difference is showing. I
Yeah.
have no idea what you're talking about. My
That's
daughter
where it,
might.
that's where the name came from. Her name was Veronica or Ronnie or something. And so that's
Okay.
where it came from when I was 7 or 8.
Got
And
it.
so fast forward to like 2021 where I was like playing with a new name, like I was like, "Oh, well, I've called myself this before. Like
Hmm.
let me try this on now." And so,
You know what's fascinating about that is like intuition is always there, right?
yeah.
And you called yourself that once before. You start playing with it, it lands, and it was like when you were a kid, you knew. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I didn't put that together, but yes. Like that's exactly what it feels like. Um
Phenomenal. You guys pay attention to what yourself is saying to you. It's always
Even in
talking to you.
always the little things too.
So
It's always the
cool.
things that you like so easily step over.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I was playing with this name in the mirror with myself, and I think I recruited like one of my good friends, and I was like, "Hey, can you just like call me this like and use they them pronouns, like just me and you as a secret. Don't do it with anybody else, but just when I text you." And they're like, "Oh yeah, for sure."
Love it.
So I think I did that for about a month, and I was like, "Okay, like I'm getting it. Like this feels more solid. Like yes, I think it is this name. I think it is this identity." And that's when I went to you
Mm.
and we had a conversation about it, and you remember it was at the house in
Oh, I
Florida.
remember. I remember. Ronnie comes and is like, I gotta talk to you about something. You're always very timid about these kinds of conversations, which I can get, but at the same time, I think they've always turned out in your favor. And so I'm always
Hmm.
like, everybody loves you, Ronnie Bonnie. Like, nobody cares what we call you, what your pronouns are. But anyways, like you're just filled with like love around you. But yes, I
Yeah.
remember. I remember sitting on my bed and being like, knock, 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 knock. Can we talk?
Hmm.
Of course we can talk. Get your ass in here. What are we talking about?
And I was like, I want to change my name. I want you to call me a different name, and I want to use different pronouns, they, them pronouns.
Yeah.
And you got very interested, and you were like, okay, well, like, what does this mean? And like, you were confused about the pronouns at
I
first.
mean, okay, so there is an age difference, right? And like, it's really, and I actually really love it because there are things that come to light that I don't think about or consider, I feel like, because of an 18-year age gap. But like,
Hmm.
when I was in college, I I didn't really pass the class very. I mean, I got a C. C's get degrees was what my boyfriend said. It was the only C I ever got was in like journalism, but we did AP style writing. It was journalism. It was very like intricate. And so like, shit like you don't say the word agitate. Like you're not agitated, you're irritated. Agitate is what you do when you whip the scrambled eggs. I mean, isn't that like a funny
Mm.
thing? So like everything was very precise as I was trained in college. And so for me, like, I'm like, you come to me and you're like, you want to be called they, them. I'm like, but I'm looking at you. And you're like, but I don't identify as a girl or a boy, but both. And I'm like, but they, them is like a group of people. And I'm like, I'm looking at you and I so badly want people to be expressed in their like like what is most authentic and what is most expressed for you and what is it like what's going to give you the most power. And I got
Mm,
real pissed because I was like, I don't feel like we should squish you into a they them. I feel like we need to come up with your own pronoun. Like,
mm,
let's not do it the old way. The old way is clearly bullshit. We like nobody in society was prepared for they them and non-binary. Like we were just like we're stuck. So let's create something new. But I think through the conversation, what was really enlightening for me was you saying, I feel like there's different energies in me. Like there was
mm-hmm,
multiple energies, or it was like a two energy, or it's not just a one energy. And that was the piece that I could get behind. So the
mm-hmm,
second that you were like, well, it's like two energies, I was like, oh, okay, that's a they
mm-hmm.
them. Do you know what I mean? And like that was the thing that flipped. But it took us a while, like a lot of questions for me to ask. And I think that's like, I hope that everybody who goes through questioning either their sexuality or like what is on their path and like pronouns or like any of that, I hope they have people around them who are that interested with love. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because like, I'm like, I won't call you whatever you want, but I want you to be like the most empowered in what we're choosing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was really the
And
challenge.
And I love that you say that too, because like that's what I felt was like there's not just feminine or just masculine, but it feels like both. Like I want to dance between the two, like masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And so like sometimes I will dress more feminine or sometimes I will dress more masculine and I get to dance, but not everyone will feel like that. Like as far as like what their definition of non-binary means for them. I mean, non-binary encompasses like 100 different
I mean,
definitions. It's just an umbrella term. So like
yeah.
it when I say like oh they them because it's two, it's not like that for everybody. And so like one example I'll say is like when you say somebody lost their wallet. You don't
Mhm.
know if it's a she or a he or a they or whatever. It's just we don't know what that gender is, so it's a they.
Right.
Like and it's one person, like one wallet, one person. So
Right.
like that's another like context for they them rather than like a multitude of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So awesome. And I think you just did it so fantastically, like transitioning. Now, specifically for your name, so you were interested in changing Ronnie,
Hmm.
right? And so how did you, why, how, what? The last name too, because this is not your birth last name and
Right.
you've never been married. So it's
Right.
not like a married name.
Well, the first name I will say, the first name I was born with was my mom and dad's name put together. Like they merged their two names and then they had me and then they were divorced when I was two. So like the name also holds energy. Like hair holds energy, names hold energy, all of it. Everything holds
Yes.
energy. So,
And just for listeners, I have seen so many people in their spiritual journey as they progress notice that their names don't fit them anymore. And so it's a very common practice as people like awaken and choose their life path to choose another name. So if you're listening to this and you want to choose another name, we got your back. It's
mhm.
just some paperwork. There's a lot of processes with all the after the filing of the paperwork, but like big fans is what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Big fans.
You
Yeah.
don't have to be non-binary either. You can just
No.
change your name. You don't have to change your gender if you
Yeah.
don't want to.
Yeah.
But
Just like if it don't fit, change it.
mhm. So knowing that that name I was born with held the energy, I was like, that's not it either. Like I don't want to keep holding on to that energy of like the
Mhm.
broken marriage, if you will, the marriage that didn't work out. Um, so then like Ronnie, and then as I was going through the paperwork to file like the legal name change, I put Ronnie and my birth last name, and something happened with the paperwork. It didn't go through. I had to redo it, and I was like,
Divinely, something divinely happened. See,
divinely.
again.
If there's not ease in the process, there may be something to look at with the
For sure.
alignment or like what's not working about it.
Yeah, if you want to
So,
take away from this podcast, if it's not flowing through with ease, maybe it's not meant to be on that path. Stop forcing shit.
stop forcing it. Take a look. Take a step back, take a look at what you're doing. So that's when I looked at the last name too. It was like, okay, well, maybe a different last name would be in alignment. And seeing you go through the process of changing your last name and choosing your own last name,
Mhm.
feeling inspired, like, okay, well, like I don't want to be attached to my dad's family. I want to create something new for myself, a new matriarchy, a new line, a new lineage. And as you mentioned, even you taking back your old last name after you got divorced, the name that you were born with, it's not really your last name. It's your dad's last name.
It's
Like
not.
anybody. The name that you're born with is your dad's last name,
Like the tradition
normally.
of United States America, right? And because it's different in different countries and different cultures. Some of them do have a matriarchal lineage, or some of them name it differently. But for the most part, like, when we finalized our divorce and the judge was like, you're going to file for a different last name. Like, if you want your maiden name, he just kind of like stamped it on all the files. So I could essentially go back to my maiden name like this
Mm-hmm.
after the divorce. Like, he had already filed the paperwork for me. That's essentially what the divorce decree said. And then I just didn't do anything with it. I kept staring at it. I'm like, I didn't do anything with it. And it was because I'm like, it was the same exact feeling. Like, going back to my old name was not my old name.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So for those of you divorced, women, and you're like, WTF on the name thing, like, your last name came from your father. If it feels good, cool. If it does not feel good, I for myself was like, well, I'm big about matriarchy. I am pro matriarchy. Somebody just told me I'm feminist forward. I was like, I like that. That's a
Oh,
good
I
term.
like that.
Yeah. And I was just like, well, I'm not going to go back to that old last name that is also patriarchal, or my ex-husband's last name, which is his. Like, nothing was female or mine. And I was
Mm.
like, I want my energy. I want to be sovereign. I'm like, that's what I'm looking for, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, same, same, same for you, huh?
Samesies.
Same scenes.
Yeah. And then it's funny because I wanted a last name that was something to do with like earth or nature. I'm an earth sign, so I really wanted something like earthy.
Oh, what's your
Um,
earth sign?
I'm Capricorn is in
Capricorn.
there
It's
in
a
one
I
of the
know.
threes.
There's the big three, but like the earthy one is the Capricorn.
Capricorn. So I found something that was earth, so Kala lilies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also wanted like a little bit of Spanish or Hispanic heritage in there. My girlfriend, now fiance, is from Guatemala, so she's Latina. But the Kaya in Spanish actually means shut up.
Oh, oh, that's like so good for you. That's such a good. Kala is so cute, but in Spanish means shut up. So you're like, I'm so cute, shut up.
Mm,
It's like so edgy
it's a
on
little
both
bit.
sides.
It's got a little bit of edge in there.
It's got a little bit. I just got a little bit cute, which is
Hmm.
so you. Welcome
Thanks.
to Ronnie. A little bit cute, a little bit edge. Burn a
That's
house down
me.
if you want.
Oh my God.
I'm
And
just
then we both have our last names are both flowers.
they're
We just realized that
flowers.
like a couple months ago, maybe.
I know, isn't that phenomenal? So it's kind of like I wonder, which is very feminine, right? So it's like
Hmm.
you can be shut up and also very feminine.
Yeah.
And I think in this time of the planet shifting into divine feminine, I think it's
Hmm.
appropriate. Like, not just the flowers and communion with earth and earthy, but like the divine feminine of like choosing your sovereignty and being empowered and like having a matriarchal lineage if you'd so like.
Hmm.
Yeah, phenomenal. Well, congratulations. So, how do you feel? Here's what I would also tell listeners. Um, there's something really profound when somebody, for lack of a better term, hits the nail on the head. Because I might have called, I mean, I specifically called you your old name one time just to dig at you. I remember that one. But like, as soon as you were Ronnie, it was just Ronnie. It like
Hmm.
made so much sense. And the old name did not make any sense. And I feel like Ronnie Kalla is such a good fit that it's like, it's you.
Hmm.
And so, I invite people, it's like, it's not that hard. When it's just you, it's you, you know? Um, Anything else you want to say about your name? I think it's amazeballs.
I think it's had me live such a different life.
Mm.
Like there's
Mhm.
an energy about the person that I was when I had my born name, and there's an energy about the person I am now stepping into my new name.
Yes.
And even like Ronnie with my old last name, like that's a different person. Like there's almost like three different people floating around out there. But like
Right.
it's all about the alignment of
Mhm.
like the person that you were and the person you're stepping into. Again, you don't even have to change your name to like
Mhm.
be in that inquiry. Like
Mhm.
who is what I'm choosing right now part of the old person that I was or part of the new person that I want to be?
Yeah.
Like that was like an inquiry that I was in for like 2 years and still continue to be, honestly. But like
Yeah.
that's old paradigm, new paradigm. Like what is it that I'm choosing from? It's a great like question to be in.
Yeah, old paradigm, new paradigm of Earth too is like you get to create. So, like, what do you want to create? So, if you're listening to this, you've been thinking about changing your name, here's your sign.
Hmm.
If you don't want to change your name, cool, don't have to. But everything is energy. And so, the alignment of the creation with the name allowed you to then step into something more fully, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Totally.
cool. Awesome. Should we talk about Vipassana?
Let's talk about it. Let's
I
get
know it's
into
so
it.
exciting when you come back, isn't it? It's like all you
Didn't
want to.
didn't you miss me?
I totally missed you. Are you kidding me? I talked more to my ex-husband than I had for a very long time.
Oh
my
my
daughter was
gosh.
like, my daughter was like, "Mommy, and she was at her dad. She's like, "You and Daddy are talking more than you ever have. Why do you keep calling?" And I go, "It's because Ronnie's at Vipassana or Vipassana.
Hmm.
Ronnie's silent for 10 days. I need somebody to tell these amazing stories too. I'm gonna call your dad."
Hmm. I think we
Like,
talked for like an
I have a
hour
short
at the
I have a short
airport.
people list, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I
We,
totally missed you.
mhm.
So for those of you who don't know, you want to just tell a real brief snippet, like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is Vipassana?
So Vipassana is how Buddha found enlightenment.
Hmm.
It is the meditation and the practice in which he sat under a tree and was enlightened. There's a code of discipline to follow. The retreat is 10 days,
Hmm.
silent, no phones, no books, no journal, no nothing. Um, the
How did you do with that? Was that
I think I did okay. The first 3 days, I was like, this is great.
okay?
There was definitely a lot of thoughts that spiraled and shut up. My brain would not shut off.
I mean,
Um,
that's typical, but like you can't write. There's no books. There's no journals. There's no like
yeah,
extra
so I
thing,
can't get it out at all. It's just,
right? How is that?
I felt like I wanted to scream sometimes. I just
Okay.
wanted to like go to the lake and like scream, but I couldn't. So I felt like I was internally screaming sometimes. But I
Totally.
think like day 9,
Totally.
I felt like zen. Like day 9, day 10, I was like good. But like those
Yeah.
first couple, it was a lot.
Well, and fun fact, there's a big percentage that don't make it through 10 days.
Hmm.
There's a big percentage that leave.
Everyone, everyone in my group stayed.
See, it's a new paradigm. You guys are younger. I'm telling you. It's like, follow
Well,
the one.
not everyone was younger. I think,
It's a new
anyway.
paradigm.
New paradigm. New
New
paradigm.
paradigm.
So, the code of discipline of what Vipassana is,
Hmm.
there's like three foundational principles. The first one is sila, which is moral conduct. So, that's like, I shall not lie, I shall not kill, I shall not sexual misconduct.
Therefore, you're separated from sexes, you don't talk, and you eat vegetarian food. They just wiped them all out. They were like, this is
Mhm.
what you're doing.
They're like, we're making it real easy for you.
Real easy. Shut the fuck up. Separate the sexes and eat vegetarian. Okay,
Yep.
now we're going to.
Yep. And then the second principle is samadhi, which is concentration of the mind.
Mhm.
And for the first 3 days, you're literally just observing the sensation of respiration on your nose and above your lip, and that's it. And you don't sense or think or feel anything else on the body. You're just observing your breath.
Your brain gets real focused.
You get real focused. That's
Yeah.
where the concentration part comes
Yeah.
from. And then like having that pillar or like
Mhm.
that foundation, then you have panya, which is the wisdom of insight. And that's like the observation of things as they really are, seeing things as they really are.
Mm-hmm.
So Vipassana as a meditation, you're observing sensations on the body. You're scanning from the tip of your head to the bottom of your toes and the sensations that show up, whether it's pain or tingling or tickling or like a poking feeling or an itch. Like if you have an itch on your nose, you can't scratch it. You just gotta sit still with your hands closed and your feet closed, and you can't touch anything.
People listening are like, well, what kind of torture? And it's in 60-minute increments, the sit time. So it's really like, and I would say it's the goal. Like you could really, and I did, just for the listeners, I did this training probably 15 years ago now. And the training itself, is so phenomenal for what people are looking for. Like people are looking for more peace of mind. They're looking to be more productive. They're looking to release their addictions, right? Like we talked to, and it's like, okay, well, you could go do a 10-day meditation retreat. And they're like, oh, I don't know about this. How committed are you? You know what I mean? But the people who do it, there's like CEOs and things like that. And so it is one of the practices that I consistently recommend to clients, to people who are talking to whatever, because that, like you get that precise on sensations, you get that skilled at letting a sensation go. You do find enlightenment, but you become so much more skilled at life just by it's like the whole shebang's right there.
You become more focused and more productive because you're not like squirrely in your brain about all the things that need to get done. You're like very, very focused on the one thing in front of you, and you're very present with the one thing in front of you. So it tends to go faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's the phenomenal thing. And I say this because a lot of people are like, oh, I should practice before I go to the 10 days. I'm like, I knew fuck all about meditation before I went. I knew nothing. I don't think I had even tried meditating. And people were like, but you're going to go. I'm like, well, they're going to teach you, And so it's like, yes, you're supposed to sit still. And yes, you're not supposed to move for an hour. And yes, you're not supposed to fall asleep. And yes, it's like all these and yeses, but you're also learning. And so like in my hall, you'd have somebody just like, everybody's sitting, men and women are separated. And then you'd hear, and you're like, and you like, you're like, and then it doesn't stop, and you're like, well, is somebody gonna get that? Like you're like, is somebody gonna get that? Like,
we had somebody in our hall that like sat in a corner and made a bed, like with the pillows and a blanket and like the whole thing, and she would fall asleep sometimes. So
people were falling asleep everywhere, but the whole point is like that reaction to be like, somebody take care of that. That's your shit.
That's your shit. That's not theirs.
Right. And so nobody in the hall who's managing it is going to do anything about it because that's your shit.
And also you start to notice when you're silent and you're rooming with 6 other girls, you start to notice like how much of the shit you're creating and you're projecting. Like, oh, so-and-so walked by me and they like brushed my shoulder. They didn't say anything. Like, oh, they must be an asshole. Nope, that's just me. Like, they just didn't see me, or they weren't paying attention, whatever. Like, it's all on you.
Yeah. And so there's 2 things that you're releasing, right? The 2 main things that you're releasing inside of this practice when you're just being still. What are the 2? The craving and aversion?
Craving and aversion. Yeah. So as you're feeling the sensations in your body, you're not being attached to when you feel like a pleasurable sensation, like a tingling or a pulsing or whatever it may be. And then you're not craving that sensation, and you're not averting when it's pain or tickling or something you need to itch.
Right.
And the more that you don't react to either of those things, it's equanimity, equanimous with both of those.
Equanimous. Finding your equanimity. I think.
The more that you are equanimous, the more that you're actually changing those thought patterns and those reaction patterns. What they call it is sankharas. It's like the deep reactions and the deep patterning
Mm-hmm.
that we have because of the way that because of the sensations that we're feeling, and then we go, oh, I have to itch it, or oh, I have a pain that's been around for 20 years because of my knee surgery. Like, those are deep sankharas and judgments and reactions that we've cultivated for so long. So the more that you sit and not react to those
Mm-hmm.
things, the more that they're just released. And it's very interesting because with other like personal growth and development programs or courses, you
Mm-hmm.
normally have to identify the thing that you're clearing to get
Yeah.
to the root of it. But with this practice, you don't actually have to identify like where it came from or why you're feeling it or like whatever the root is. You kind of just feel the sensation and you're like, oh, I wonder how long this will last. And you keep scanning and you keep going through the body, and then you're like, oh, I wonder how long this will last. And then
Yeah.
it goes away.
And I think that's a really good point because we get so I would assert, if you're listening, check it out for yourself. I would assert that a lot of humans get addicted to like, well, why am I like that? And why do I have
Mm-hmm.
that? And what's that about? And where did it come from? And so I remember, I think around the time that I had done Vipassana. Now, my trainings in personal growth before that had actually been landmark education. So there's a lot of conversation. There's just a lot of analyzation, a lot of conversation. It's, the study of ontology, why are humans the way we are, like the study of human being. And that's where I met my ex-husband. And so he and I would always talk about these things. And then I came back from Vipassana. Now, my experience when I came back, there were actually a lot of people who had done the Landmark Forum who were in my Vipassana.
Oh.
And when we got to talk, it was like, oh my God, oh, you're from there, you're from there, you're from there. And it was fun. And they were like, well, how was it for you? And I was like, this was like the Landmark Forum on crack because the amount that you clear
Mm-hmm.
without having a conversation about it was phenomenal. And I think there's also something else to that. Like the more that you talk about the thing, the more you keep the thing in play because you're still
Mm-hmm.
talking about it like it's real instead of what does it look like to just clear? And so the more that you clear from literally just not reacting to it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like the foundational principle that you're talking about, right? Is like you have a sensation and you don't do anything about it. You didn't react to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it disappears. And then you like crave when the body feels really good, you want to get back that like sensation. You're like, oh, I want to feel that again. But be with it and let it go because then you're letting go the desire and the want,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and so we just live in this paradigm of like, craving and aversion, like you're talking about, or like a want and a hate for the other thing. Like I want
Mm-hmm.
this thing and I hate this thing. And you just keep going back and forth so that being equanimous. Somebody should actually comment on this and tell us, did we say it right? Should we get
Equanimous.
Alexa involved? It's like whatever. My tongue doesn't even do it. So it's like staying in that space that allows for ultimate freedom. And so you end up doing years of talk therapy in 10 days. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't,
Mm-hmm.
and you find that you don't actually have to talk. And it was really fascinating too, because my ex-husband, he was still in the always wanting to talk about everything. And I just started like being with things and letting them go. And they just started to clear. And me
Mm-hmm.
being really clear, like that this reality is what you choose. And like, what am I going to let go? And like, am I going to get attached to that? No. And like, what do I do? It
Mm-hmm.
was like this very like light way of processing that all of a sudden became my way of life. And he would just be like, well, how do I know it's clear for you? And I'm like, because I fucking did that work. And he's like, but we didn't talk about it. I'm like, I ain't got to talk about everything, and that became like this amazing new way of living.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
that's a good point. Like when you're talking about things all the time, like your words hold energy. And so if it's at the forefront all the time of like what you're going through or this problem that you're having, or oh, I was going through this thing and I still feel the thing, like it's resurfacing every time that you talk about it. That feeling in your body is resurfacing every time you talk about it. And
100%.
the whole premise of Vipassana is we experience life through the sensations in our body. So we have a thought, but then that thought creates a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I thought this thing about this person that brushed by me. Oh, they're an asshole because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't see where they were going. I have a sensation in my body because they're an asshole.
So,
That's the part.
and sometimes it's flipped though, too. So
Hmm.
sometimes you have a sensation creep up, and the sensation sometimes happens before the thought, but the thought is trying to identify what the sensation is. And now there's just this whole story,
Hmm.
right? So it could go either way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So, like either way, it's like the sensation is creating the reaction.
Hmm.
If
Hmm.
you have a thought and you just observe it, there's no reaction, there's no nothing that gets attached to it.
Right. Right. And
Hmm.
that's like how would it be like? What would it be like for everybody to just be living like that? Where it's like I had a sensation in my body. It doesn't mean you're an asshole, and it doesn't mean we need to go to war, and it doesn't mean you're the worst person in the world. It's just a trigger probably from my past and how my mom and dad were when I was little, and that's literally all it is. So if I can be
Hmm.
with it, it dissipates. Now we have a new reality to live in. And
Totally.
that's enlightenment. You're welcome.
You're welcome. That's all you need.
You're welcome. Just be with the sensation. So the whole point is too is like it's a training ground. So like when you're in the oh my god, it's like the Italian version of Vipassana. When you're in the Vipassana, it's actually that's y'all. That is not what it's called. It's called Vipassana. Anyways, when
It,
you're in it, you don't have to do everything perfectly. Is the whole point too.
hmm.
And I think that's the other thing that you'd be clearing is like having to do it perfectly. Like it's okay if you fall
Totally.
asleep and you're the snorer.
Totally. Because the other thing is, like, you're not supposed to have a clear head all the time. You're not supposed to have the thoughts stop. So if you feel like you have a monkey mind or your brain just like is operating on auto and you can't
Mhm.
ever turn it off, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's exactly how I was feeling like the first, majority of the time until like day 9 or something. Because the point of it is whenever your brain goes out on like a thought train, to bring it back. Every
Yeah.
time it goes off, bring it back. And then you smile and you go, oh, my mind was going off on a tangent again. Okay, let's start over. Let's start again. And then it'll go off on a tangent 5 minutes later and you go, oh, okay, let's come back.
Yeah.
And that's the practice, is just to bring it back in and reel it back in every time.
Yeah. So how's your practice been since you've been back?
So I had an intention because during the retreat, you're meditating 3 times a day with the group for
Mm.
1 hour each. And then the rest of it is this other 7 hours are on your own
That's
time in
so
your room.
fascinating. I would have never remembered that. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I had some breakfast. There was tea at night. There was a lot of meditating.
Oh, I calculated it because when I got there, I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was this much. How many hours are we actually doing?
Yeah.
So they give you a schedule. I calculated it. It's 10 hours. So
Yeah.
3 out of those 10 you're with the group in the hall. The other 7 you can do on your own or on your own time. So I had an intention when I left. I want to keep doing 3 hours a day now that I've built up my muscle. If I've built up my muscle for 10, I can do 3. That's no problem. And then the real world hit, and I came back, and that didn't happen the first week. So,
The real world. I know. It is, and it is my recommendation when people go every single time. I'm like, you're going to have this muscle built and it will go away so fast
mhm,
in our environment that I'm always like, try to keep your morning and evening practice of nothing else. Like if
mhm,
nothing else, try to keep it for like a year. I think I did it.
mhm. Yeah, that's what Mr. Goenka recommended on
Oh,
like the
really?
10th
Oh,
day.
good.
Yeah.
See, I got it from somebody real smart.
Yeah. So I had that intention. I think I did morning and evening for an hour each, so 2 hours a day for the first 3 days.
Hmm.
And then after that, maybe it was like 30 minutes and then maybe 20 minutes a day. And it started dropping off very quickly. So it's the start of the week as we're recording this. I've set in my calendar the 3 times a day, the 3 hours a day. I have been on track this week. So I have recommitted. And I think that's like the point. Like when you
That
fall
is
off, it's not like, oh, I'm all done and the world has ended and I can't do it anymore. It's
that is
like,
the point.
let me bring it back. Let me restart. I'll
Yeah.
try again.
So how was it when you weren't meditating?
The world felt a lot different. So I think I really stopped because I was falling asleep. I was doing it too early in the morning and then too late at night, and then I was falling asleep. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not making a difference anyway. It doesn't matter if I stop doing it. But then when I started doing even 30 minutes a day, um, I used to do 20, 30 minutes a day before my 10-day retreat, and
Yeah.
that was my max. Like that's how much I would do every day, and
Yeah.
that's what would like keep me going. But now coming back from it, if I did 30 or 20 minutes a day, I would feel like I was spiraling. Like the
Yeah.
day was it was more chaotic, it was more like emotional, more of that like roller coaster again.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, this is fascinating. This used to be like my normal, and now it's not my norm. It's not my normal anymore."
Yeah, you know what? It's really interesting. I think when people are waking up in the consciousness and as the planet shifts, I think we're demanding more of us in our levels of consciousness, meaning
Oh
like,
yeah.
where people maybe drink alcohol or soda pops or something. It's like now your body doesn't like it, and if you're paying attention, you'll see and hear the signs.
Hmm.
Addictions to sugars or complacency with the body, where the body wants to move more, or that desire for meditation, but not just what it used to be, but longer stints of connecting to your higher self and consciousness. Like it makes sense that
Hmm.
like what worked before, like now you're desiring and requiring a higher level of connectedness and consciousness. I think
Totally.
that's
And I've been
amazing.
feeling that the past couple of weeks. Like,
Mhm.
I haven't had coffee with caffeine. Like, I've had
Mhm.
decaf coffee the past couple of weeks,
Mhm.
if anything. If
Yeah.
not, it's just tea.
Mhm.
But like the level of caffeine that my body can have now, or like the sugars, like you're saying, I don't remember last time I really had soda, or
Mhm.
like drinking more water, or like
Yeah.
think little things like that, where it's like the energetic upgrading of like
Yes.
the planet and the
Yes.
body, and like
Yes.
needing to like almost, the word is like purify, like purifying the body more so that we can hold.
Yeah, because the body is going from a very dense space. We've been doing this upgrade, I mean, probably our whole lifetime, but really intensely in the last 10 to 15 years. This upgrade has been
Hmm.
happening. And the upgrade for the body and the system is taking it from this carbon solid base to a more energetic field that's lighter, more
Hmm.
connected, more interdimensional. And so if you're thinking about it, it's like can the hard rock get there? Or is it like the leaf blowing in the wind will get there? And so it's like
Hmm.
even like heavy foods probably will be not a match
Hmm.
anymore. And so if you're listening to this and you guys are having similar symptoms or something like that, like, that is the body upgrading as well.
Hmm. Totally. So then I also want to bridge
Yeah.
Vipassana and the law of attraction, because that's like what we do.
Oh,
That's like what we
it's
talk
my
about.
favorite thing.
Because it's very interesting being there. They're
Yeah.
like, please, hold any and all practices that
Mhm.
you have done or that you're used to. And I'm pretty sure they meant meditation. Like if you like meditate like
You know
visually
what?
or
Your exercise practices, like people
hmm
were real addicted to their exercise. They're like, I can't go running. And they're like, no,
hmm
you can't go running.
Yeah, there
I
were some
can't
marathon
journal.
runners that
No,
I
you
was
can't
with too.
journal. Say that again. Sorry.
There were marathon runners that I was with. But like having to like expend all of your like previous practices. So I was like, does
Yeah.
that mean like law of
Suspend.
attraction? Does that mean like
Is
some
it
of the clearing
suspend?
things? Disband. Thank you. Disband.
Suspend. Suspend?
Suspend.
I think it's
Disband.
suspend.
Suspend. Thank you. Suspend. That's a word. That's
Somebody,
one of the
somebody,
words I'm
somebody
probably
should let
looking
us know
for.
which word we were supposed to choose.
I don't know. We're
We
Anyway,
make them all up.
so
It's fine.
suspend all of the previous practice. So
There you
so I
go.
was like, well, does that include like law of attraction, the Beyond Human method, the works I've been
Mhm,
doing?
mhm,
So I did try to take out some of that, but I'm
mhm.
also like there were some things where that showed up that I was like, no, I'm gonna clear that. Like it's gonna be much easier if I do this practice, if I clear this thing first. So I
Yeah.
did that. But like I'm like, okay, well, how does this go together? Because
Mhm.
as you're going through the training, like something that they say is like you don't have control over your outside forces and circumstances. Like if Bob's an asshole, you don't have control over Bob. So you have to have control over the sensations in your body and how you react to them. So then it then helps you be more like in control of your sensations, right? So I think there are some things about the practice and the teachings that I took away that work really well. And then there are
Yeah.
some things that I, didn't resonate with me like that. So
Yeah.
I think some of the things that like worked really well, for example, are like the more that you are in tune with the sensations in your body
Mm-hmm.
and present with where
Mm-hmm.
you are right now,
Mm-hmm.
the more you can create where you want to be. Because if and any time you're creating, it's like where you are, where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sometimes it's like the delusion, right? Like building with delusion and like the creation, like how big and how massive can you create, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not first looking at where you are and all the detail of where
Right.
you are right now, you
Yeah.
can't create the solid foundation to where you want to go. Does
Yeah.
that track for you?
Um, a little, yes, but I would caveat it too. So I think, this was my expertise as law of attraction came really after I did Vipassana, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was like my journey. But the skill set, and I think this is really great for people to learn, is like, what is the sensation in the body? What are you present to? What's really happening? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like one of the principles, like the
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. Like you are becoming aware of what is happening, not your assessment of what's happening, not your internal dialogue about what's happening, not what you think is happening, but like what is actually happening. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that skill set transformed my ability to coach and to be and to change and everything because I got real skilled at what is really happening. And so that can and that relates to the trainings that we do with people, and that relates to like people around me. Like if people are going through something, I'm also like, let's go like what's really happening, because we make it all up,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think that's the precision skill set. And I think it is also like, again, now if we identify the energy, which is what we do really well here at the Beyond Human Method, is like identifying the energy. And so that skill set of like what is really happening and like what do you feel in your body is
Mm-hmm.
the precision of like what is the energy, right? Because you'll be able to feel expanded or contracted, and then you'll get sensations, and those are all feelings. And so you can really identify, and it's like, okay, that's going to give you a more precise coordinate of like, where are you? And so
Mm-hmm.
to your point, like, okay, now I want to go here. You got to know where you are, and you got to know what's stopping you, and you got to know what energy you're in, so you know what the hell to clear, and you know what there is to take on, right? And I think what happens is a lot of people are like, I'm going to become a billionaire. Okay, what energy are you in now? Because it ain't billionaire. And you
Mm-hmm.
know how I know it ain't billionaire? Because you ain't got a billion.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in that energy, you'd have billions. So we got to go through all the places of that. And I think that's what this kind of practice really lends to. And it's why we have a free meditation series for anybody to do. And it's why, we implement life-changing techniques for people that start with your awareness and this precision and meditating, because it's so foundational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you can't get anywhere else without it.
I mean, if you don't know where you are, where are you going to get? It's like, where are you? And somebody's like, I'm on Mars. You're like, no, okay. And where do you want to get to? And they're like, Venus. You're like, what are your coordinates? Like,
Yeah.
you ain't even on planet Earth right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, homie, I don't know what to do with you. Like, let's get you centered, because I know you on Earth, but you ain't in on Earth. You know what I mean? Like, we got to
Totally.
really get precise on it. Yeah.
So I'm curious because you did Vipassana 15 years ago
Mhm.
before you did your other trainings in Law of Attraction and that foundation. So there was something it seems like there was
Yeah.
something missing from Vipassana that had you pursue other things.
Yeah.
So what was missing in Vipassana that you integrated now in the Beyond Human method?
Yeah. It's a great question. So, it's really funny because my dating profile says like all the religions, right? Because I'm a big fan of all the spiritual practices. I think everything, like, I don't walk around looking for, like, what is the right thing? Because everything over here is wrong. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, seems like everything's right. Well, let's take a look at that. And mostly because while enlightenment is cool, like, you are inherently enlightened. It's all the human condition that gets slapped on top of you that covers up your enlightened state. But
Mm-hmm.
if we look at the thing that was missing, like, I just inherently knew. I'm a knower. My intuition is always knowing. I inherently knew there was like more, or there was something else. And I think it was probably when I started working with my spiritual teacher after I did Vipassana. And my spiritual teacher and every energetic teacher and practice I've done afterwards has always pointed to, like, we are the creators of our reality.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Not one practice has ever said, I'm at the effect of my reality. Right. Now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Vipassana might have a little twinge of that if it's like, well, Bob's just an asshole and I don't have any control over that. We're always creating a reality. So why is Bob showing up as an asshole in your field? That would be my next question. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, allow Bob to be Bob. But if we want to ultimately change reality, we have to, like, look like, why would I attract that right now? And I think those are the deeper questions. And so it really just became a knowing that there's something else. So a lot of the spiritual practices, when they work with people, when people internalize them, they look at it like, I need to give up my worldly possessions to become
Mm-hmm.
enlightened. That things and stuff are wrong. And I think, again, there's smart things, or there's like truth in everything, right? Yes, to crave things is not good for us. That's not going to attain enlightenment. But to create a new reality is why we incarnated. And so this bridges that principle of my truth of why we incarnated. So, like, if
Mm-hmm.
your truth is to become enlightened and give up all your worldly possessions and, like, sit on a mountain and, like, be happy, like, that's rad. You're gonna shift consciousness for everybody. But for me, being like my path to be a single mom and a successful business owner and this and that and have a cool, calm, chill life and not buy into the paradigm of single mom, that for me is like paving a way for
Mm-hmm.
people to see something else is possible inside of the shattering of paradigms. So it is my firm belief that we all came to create. To know what you're creating is the first step. To then be able to change the creation would be like the second step. And for me, that is like why we're all here playing on a 3D planet with free will, is because we're like doing this fun dance of creation.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of it's not fun right now, but it is also why we incarnated now too. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
bring a new perspective and activate this awakening. So it was never, I just knew there was more.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew there was more. And, like, so when something showed up in my purview, in my reality, like, my spiritual teacher kind of was like, my ex-husband worked with my spiritual teacher before I did. And, like, his whole family had done the work with her. And I was like, ooh, I really want to do that. Like, it was in my purview.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like a full yes, like, each time. Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. And then that just kind of kept going because, that's a lot of programs. That's a lot of work I did,
That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work I did, for those of you who don't know. 15
That's
years,
awesome.
53
Well,
programs, lots of money.
I'm I'm curious, like this question pops up for me, and I'm curious if any of our listeners are wondering this, because
Yep.
we talk about talk therapy, and if it's always
Mhm,
like,
mhm,
if we're always talking about it, then it's always like at the forefront, the
mhm.
feeling, right? We said that earlier,
Yep,
and now we're saying like, well, why am I attracting this? Like,
yep,
always questioning, like, why am I attracting this? So, like, how
yep.
would you say that that's different than talk therapy, for example?
Well, if you have a good therapist, I love them. I'm going to say that first and foremost. But, nowadays, do you ever see the ads, like, on social media? Do you want to become a therapist in just 6 months? And I'm like,
Yes.
what? what? And
like a
you and I have had
better health
experiences.
or
We talk about our experiences with therapy, and we're like, that was shit. Okay. So
and there are people that have great therapists and it works for them. And if it works
100%.
for you, that's great.
And some of our clients have great therapists that they work with and use this methodology. So like
Hmm.
it's just find credibility. Find credibility with what you choose. So what I have found is like the talk therapy and the diagnosis is usually in a limited human form subset, meaning we're going to relate to humans as like a lot of the like the term gaslighting, the term narcissist, the term whatever. And it's like somebody's always doing something to me. And we have lots of words to identify it. The second you identify something like that, you've solidified it in reality. And then you keep talking about it and it keeps solidifying in reality. And so it's just layer upon layer upon layer of solidifying in reality, and it creates a paradigm.
Mm.
So what we do is we're like, okay, the reason I'm asking, why did you attract that? What's that mean about you? Is because we want to identify in your energy field. What is it about you and your energy field that would attract this thing? Because if we know that, we can actually change the energy, change the paradigm. And so
Hmm.
it actually is possible to go from like, this person has been persecuting me or victimizing me or gaslighting me, and these people gaslight me and they're narcissist and they're perpetrating me, like that's a whole paradigm. It's actually, we can take that paradigm and give you a new paradigm. Like what would it be like if everybody around you was kind and loving and that's how you experience reality? That's a new paradigm.
Hmm.
You can't do it in talk therapy because you're never clearing energy. You can't do it in talk therapy because you're never actually saying, oh, I'm creating this reality. The talk therapy is like you're at the effect of everything happening around you. And
Hmm.
so
Then
again,
you like put up boundaries to
I can't wait.
then you put up boundaries because you're at the effect of like so and so being an asshole or so and so doing this thing to you. And then you're
100.
trying to put up boundaries or walls or like ways of directing it, but you're never actually clearing it or changing it. You're trying to direct it in a different way, but you're still bumping up against the same thing.
Exactly 100%. And so then we come into choice. Like if you want to choose to have that reality, that's totally fine. That's one choice. What we do here is just totally different, right? And so it is my belief, and it's why the methodology is called the beyond human method, is beyond the human limitation, beyond this thinking that things are always happening to me, beyond the effect of somebody like doing the way, I don't want to say hurting or like whatever, but like if you want to live in a reality where you're literally in charge of everything, then that's what we're doing, right? And I just don't
Hmm.
think, I haven't seen people get there with talk therapy. They can have, like I said, we have some clients who have therapists and they're great, and our clients like go leaps and bounds because they have great therapists. But the talking about it again is like consistently perpetuating that reality. So for example, one thing that I did when I really started to own I'm creating my reality, and I was a business owner, entrepreneur, and I remember standing at the beach with a friend in San Diego, and we were talking about business owner and creating businesses and stuff like that, and she just kind of looked at me and she's like, it's so hard being an entrepreneur, isn't it just so much work? And I was like, oh, I don't know. No, I mean, and it was this moment, do I want that reality of
Mm.
a lot of work? And I was like, I don't want that reality. And so I have gone to deconstruct that reality and create a new reality for my life. And it starts with like noticing those conversations because that's a paradigm. And we're not friends anymore. Like, no big deal. She's a great person, but like, I didn't want that reality.
Mm.
There's 8 billion people on the planet. You can choose your reality.
So taking Vipassana training to that conversation, it's like being an observer of the things she's saying rather than like a knee-jerk agreeing. Like, because how many of us just agree with people about their problems because we're like, oh yeah, I want to be relatable. Oh yeah, like I do that too. I feel that too. When it's
Yeah.
not even true sometimes.
It's not
Instead of
even
like
true sometimes.
questioning, like
Yeah.
number one, we don't question it. Number two, we just agree because like we want to be relatable. And then number three, it's like it's not even true sometimes.
Yes, exactly 100%. And so it really is like, again, that is Vipassana in action, like knowing, identifying what it is and just being like, but now I've got a choice. And like, I don't choose that, yo.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, anything else that you would say about law of attraction, Vipassana, meditation, closing thoughts?
I mean, I feel like we really went deep. If people have questions, they should reach out.
They should. Okay, what's the best way to reach out to us?
Yeah. Ronnie at thebeyondhumanmethod.com. Ronnie is in
Mhm.
charge of all things for client care, program manager, head coach. Very skilled with the new set of Vipassana trainings under their belt. But, look, life is a journey and it's just finding like what works for you and what's your flavor. And so not everything is meant for everybody, but I think this is our time to really set the stage, waking up to our potential and honor our strength and our power and our higher selves and create something new. Like that's what I would say. That's what I'm
Totally.
down for all the time. I'm not down for that like hard work life over there.
None of the hard work. Maybe uncomfortable, but no, it's not going to be hard.
Not gonna be hard.
Okay, cool.
So
Feel free to reach out if you have questions. We're here. I'm here. We do have our free meditation series if you'd like access to that. We'll put the link somewhere, I'm sure. Um, and we'll see you next week
next
on.
next week on the Lighten Up podcast, Ronnie Callow will be taking their head seat at the helm, asking the questions and running the show.
I will be running the show again. Thank you again, Tamra, for being our host, our lovely host this week. And we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks for being on the hot
Bye.
seat, sister. Mwah, love you.
Mwah.